Welcome everybody to another episode of Think with a Drink. This is the weekly webinar show brought to you by the ARIES Foundation for Financial Education. And we're a little overindulgent with this one, Craig, in this episode because this is an episode that nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to have to deal with.
Well, this should be popular then.
Oh yeah, this should be great. This is going to be a lot of fun. This is the dreaded B word for us, which is budget.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
More sound effects, yes.
It's a budget, and look, we're going to go through this with everybody in terms of dealing with that. We don't like to use the word budget whenever we're talking to somebody. We'll go through some of the reasons for that. But I will tell you that almost every single, the only people who really want to talk about this are people like us.
Yeah.
They want to talk about budgeting and doing budgets.
It's going to be like watching a bad monster movie.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just, it's like not even B-rated. Like, what is that? C-rated. Like terrible movies, in terms of dealing with it. But so here's the thing. It's like, doesn't matter what you look at, what you read. If you look up anything for financial planning, financial literacy, financial wellness, do anything in terms of that, financial independence, you know what one of the top 1, 2, or 3 things they're going to tell you?
What?
Do a budget.
Right. Because it's all your fault.
Yes. So, and that's what's going to happen. So we're going to go through this. We're going to talk about, all right, how do you deal with this? What do you look at? What should you be thinking about? And some of the different ways to deal with that dreaded B word in terms of going through it.
Budget.
Yeah, budget. All right, so real quick for us, for those who don't know us, my name is Tom Alessi. I am the president of the ARIES Foundation for Financial Education. I have been in financial services for now in my 25th year. I'm an investment advisor. Those letters after my name just tell you that I am a certified fiduciary, which just means anytime I'm sitting down with somebody, I always have to be acting in their best interest whenever giving guidance and advice. I want to bring my Vice President, Craig, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Craig Richardson. I'm the Vice President of the ARIES Foundation. I've been in financial services a little over 20 years now, and I specialize in working with individuals and families to help them define their financial goals and have a better relationship with their money.
And Craig will be chiming in as we go along today, but a little bit about the foundation itself. So the ARIES Foundation for Financial Education, we're a nonprofit. If you can go to the next screen, I would appreciate that. You can find us on the web at ariesfoundation.org. We are a nonprofit located here in Newton, Massachusetts. And the mission behind ARIES is really trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money. Because whether you realize it or not, you are in a relationship with your money. And just like every other personal relationship that you have, there are behaviors and triggers and things that cause us to act, well, a little irrationally sometimes when it comes to dealing with our money and our finances.
Yes, because some of us are in abusive relationships with our money.
Yeah. That can happen too. We can get abused by our money, believe me, it can happen. But so that's all that myself, Craig, the rest of the ARIES team tries to do, is we try to help everyone sort of take a step back, take a little bit of that emotion, a little bit of that challenge out of the equation to be a little bit better with handling your finances.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go to the fun part of this evening, which here now we are staying in this theme. We're in the Halloween season, October, the fall, and everything else. So we went full bore on this one. We just went over the top because this isn't really like us in terms. Though we have had some crazy beers on this show.
Yes, we have. Yes.
Mango Cart and a couple others that we have had. So this is from Sam Adams. We are not your cousin from Boston.
Boston.
Yes, no, we're here. This is the time. This is Jacko. So for anybody who hasn't seen the show or doesn't know, our concept is we try to take money, try to take finances, make them a little bit more casual, a little bit more relaxed. And one of the best ways we can think of that is to have something nice to sip on as we're going through some of these very challenging. And this one, let me tell you, that dreaded budget word is very challenging for a lot of people. But Jacko is that. It's a pumpkin ale.
Oosh.
Right? Yeah, so pumpkin, this is going to get that cinnamon, going to get that spice, that pumpkin-y flavor. If you're somebody who's really looking to embrace the fall, you do the whatever that is with dunks. They do the pumpkin spice latte
pumpkin
type
spice
of thing.
lattes, yeah.
That type of thing. So think of that, but as beer. That's essentially what this is. I could not tell you what to serve this with other than like pumpkin pie or some sort of a dessert type of thing,
yeah.
right? Because God bless. But you know what? Anyway, Skull.
Some beers don't need to be served with anything anyway.
Yeah. Well, you like to do food pairings. What was the thing they were telling me that they do with it at the bar? They do like an edging, a rim thing for it.
Oh, yeah.
They put like cinnamon sugar and caramel around it. I don't know. That makes it even more so. All right. So what does that one say? All right. So
what does that one
white
say?
on it. I don't know what happened there. It's the wrong color scheming that.
Says nobody wants to do a budget.
Nobody. Believe me, nobody wants to do a budget. As like I said, everybody's telling you to do a budget. Everybody's saying you should have a budget, but the problem is nobody wants to do it.
No.
And so what happens is it's like that whole what is that? The chicken and the egg thing. Like you got to do a budget. I don't want to do a budget. You got to do a budget. I don't want to do a budget. And you get this whole thing, and we find reasons and excuses to put it off.
Well, because I think whenever we do a budget, we always feel like we're going to feel bad about ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? We did something wrong. We spent too much money on something. It almost feels like it's a punishment, like I'm whacking my hand with a ruler.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's difficult because we have to try to go through that because we actually have to, face the music, right? Face up to the reality of this is what I'm spending. This is what I spent last month or spent last year or type of thing. And that becomes very difficult for everybody to address when we're trying to go through it. So and we'll talk about the reasons behind this, but it's just every time somebody says do a budget, like that's the first thing I hear or first thing I see is that everybody cringing when they hear that, like I don't want to do that.
That's true. That's right. I just want to spend it.
I just want to spend it. Like, can't I just spend it?
I can keep track of it too. My God.
Yeah. So if you can pull back for us again with the shot there, there we go. Thank you very much. In terms of that. So one of the things that comes up with a budget, the other part of it, what makes it kind of confusing, is that you have all of these rules. Right, everybody starts telling you, like, what shows you on the screen is this 50-30-20 thing, right? So you should put 50% towards your basic living expenses. You should have 20% go to savings, and 30% goes to discretionary or fun spending. That's the 50-30-20 thing, just so we're clear.
Right.
The other one that's up on the screen says 70-10-10-10.
Okay.
And then what that says is that it's 70% goes to your basic living expenses and discretionary spending.
Right.
But then 10 goes to short-term savings, 10 goes to mid-term savings, and 10 goes to long-term savings in terms of 10-10-10.
Which absolutely works for everybody perfectly, right?
It's crazy when you deal with some of this stuff because it's like no, not everybody fits in the same. This is like trying to cookie cutter everybody into the same thing in terms of it. We don't spend that way. Why should we try to budget ourselves or pigeonhole ourselves into trying to, I've got to fit this mold or this model?
And no wonder we feel bad. We're already pigeonholed into so many aspects of you need to fit into this groove or that groove or this group or that group or look this way or act that way. And now we're going to do the same thing with our money.
Right. Let's
punish you again because you're not doing what everybody tells you should be doing.
Yeah, and so, realizing that, yes, everybody should be thinking about, okay, I'm spending for this or I'm spending for that. We'll talk about it in a little bit. We'll go through some of the things you can do, some of the solves for some of this. But we do want to uncover and get through the whole why everybody has issues with this. And I think that's part of it, is that we get put into this like, oh, wait, I can only spend this much today, on my basic living expenses or whatever the case may be. And nobody thinks that way. Nobody does it that way. And it gets very, very difficult for the average person to try to say, oh, I'm going to do that.
Right, like me, I live in a tent, but I get Swiftie tickets.
I get to go see Taylor.
That's right. Yeah, so.
Next slide, please. All right, so some scary statistics here in terms of this, and you're going to have to forgive me because it reflects differently on mine. Oh, that's the first one there. It says 60% of the population does not know what they spent last month.
They don't?
No.
They know what they spent it though, right?
They spent it. But if you ask them, how much money did you spend last month? They don't know. If you ask them, you know, what did you spend it on? Most of the time, they're not going to know that either, right? And so this isn't like to say or, you know, knock or denigrate or anything in terms of that, but the idea is that if we are going to try to make something happen, whether we're going to try to save for something, we're going to try to pay down debt or whatever we're going to try to do, we really got to know what we're spending.
No, ignorance is bliss, right? No?
This is not bliss.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So the other statistic on there says that it's a higher number, but that like 64% of families don't have or couldn't cover
6 weeks worth of expenses.
Right, 6 weeks worth of basic expenses right now today. And you know, some of this comes out of the pandemic, it comes out of COVID, you know, because we ended up having to spend a lot of the money that was sitting in savings, you know, because of everything that was going on. But our industry tells everybody that they should have somewhere between, what, 3 to 6 months, is that what they say?
Yes, they do.
So 3 to 6 months of basic living expenses is what everybody is telling you should have set aside in that emergency account.
Right.
Like it said on the screen, that basically people have less than 6 weeks. You know, for Craig and I, when we talk to everybody, we talk about it in today's world that it's about, you should really be starting at that 4 to 6 weeks of expenses.
Well, like again, wherever you're starting from, you have to have a starting point, right? If you have some money put away, you want to do a little bit better. If you have nothing put away, then you start where you are. I mean, it's easy to say have 3 to 6 months for the top 1%, but what about the 99% of us who don't have that put away? Correct. Right? And you got to start somewhere. And the first thing is don't beat yourself up.
Right, right. And that is a big part of it. And we'll talk about some of the solves and some of the issues there. But those statistics really talking about the fact that it's really about understanding like how you're spending your money, but also to be aware of why you're spending your money and where you're spending it on.
Yeah, this is a really good point by you. The fact that, you know, like you said, a lot of people know they spent money last month, but they don't know what they spent it on. And they go back and actually do an exercise where they go back and look at their monthly spending last month, whether they have a credit card or a debit card or some kind of bank information, so they can go back and look and go, I didn't realize I spent that much money on lattes.
Lattes.
You know, those pumpkin spice lattes.
Oh, yeah, the
right?
pumpkin spice. There you go.
But they was special because it was only out this month, so I had to buy them.
You had to buy them.
Right?
Limited time, limited offer, absolutely.
But then you start discovering that the things you're spending your money on might not be as important to you as you think they are, right? And so you don't have that money at the end of the month, you can't get back, and you realize, oh, God, I wish I hadn't spent it frivolously on these things that I really didn't care about.
Right, I really didn't need, really didn't want, so now I'm in that situation of having to deal with it. But so it's that type of behavior, and a lot of this is changing those behaviors, like we talked about, those triggers, those behaviors, those reasons that we do some of this stuff. So you just got to be aware of that, you just got to be thinking of it. To next slide. Nice. It's the puppy looking at the burger. It says, screw this diet, right?
Oh, the diet washed out. I couldn't read it. Oh, okay. Screw this something. Okay.
So here's the thing, and this is the problem with budgets. So the budgeting, if you really, really peel back budgeting, the behavior of what you're telling or asking somebody to do, this is just like dieting. This is the same type of behavior. You're trying to say the same thing to somebody and say, take this away, or don't have that, or don't do this. And it's this very, very restrictive behavior that really does come out of, you know, almost like you talked about slapping on the back of the wrist, right? You know, the whole, you know, repercussions, fear, you know, bad behavior, like all of that. That's why money has the connotations that it does, is because of this. And so the idea is the whole thing for that with the screw this diet is because that's what happens to most people. They get on a diet and then what happens? They trip up, they eat the piece of chocolate cake, or they didn't exercise for, 3 days in a row, and then it's like, oh, the heck with this. Yeah.
So you took the words right out of my mouth. I've invented the chocolate cake diet. No one leaves it. They never say screw this diet.
Yeah. That was like the guy who ate nothing but Twinkies for like a month or something. Yeah. But the whole idea is what happens eventually is we get to the point where fundamentally we don't want to do this anymore. We can't do it. The behavior isn't there. We don't have the trigger that's causing us to want to continue. And we just say, screw this. say, that's it, I'm done, I'm not going to do it. And that's the problem with using the B word, with budgeting, because it has the same connotation for being the same behavior, and we end up feeling the same choked, restricted feelings.
Well, unless we do what you said earlier, define our why.
Well, that becomes part of it, right? Because we really got to get into that. And we'll talk in a second about different ways and different things you can do. But the reality here is that ultimately that's the connotation of this, is the idea of recognizing that if somebody's telling you to, go ahead and do a budget, what's going to happen to you and some of the feelings that you're going to have with this, so that you know going in, all right, this is going to be an exercise in pain for me.
Yeah, it's like going to get your flu shot. This is going to sting for a moment.
Yeah.
But trust me, it's good for you. I know you're going to be sick for 3 days, but it's going to be good for you.
Yes, you're going to be okay. We're going to give you the flu, but you're going to be all right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Next one. All right, so, Craig and I always talk to people about cash flow and visualizing it as cash flow. But for a lot of people, even the concept of trying to visualize themselves as cash flow becomes problematic because how money flows.
Right.
Money, sometimes we don't have a set. For those W-2 folks in the world, yes, you've got a set pay that comes in every month. It's not going to change in terms of that. But most people, that's not the case. There are hours that fluctuate. There's money that comes in. It's a little less this month than it was last month. It gets harder to plan with that. So that becomes a problem when we're trying to visualize it from cash flow standpoint. And then also the money that goes out. Right. It's never the same every month. So it's always this, well, wait, I spent whatever last month. Now it's going to be more than that this month. It might be less the next month.
Right. It's like trying to fill a bathtub with an open drain. Right?
Yes.
Just keeps going down the drain.
It just keeps going down the drain. We just keep running. We just keep running. And so, the idea and the concept there is really, trying to put more of this again, behavior mindset in there of, all right, money coming in, I got money going out. But then for a lot of people, they get hung up on that as well. So it does get hard when trying to sort of take some of these steps. But we like the idea of cash flow because it's just that. I'm just figuring out what I have coming in.
Yep.
And then I have what's going out. And that's the reality, is I have to fess up and face what I spent my money on.
Right.
And why it went out.
Yeah, and building savings accounts is almost like building a dam in the river, right? I got to accumulate some of this. I can't just let it all go downstream.
Right.
Right. So yeah, when you start thinking of it, however you visualize money, whatever makes it work for you, and you can get it tactile to yourself. Sometimes we use buckets. We use a lot of water references. I don't know why, but
it does flow. So
yes.
That's the whole idea. Money moves, and the whole thing.
It's making me have to go to the bathroom now.
Yeah, it just blows away. All sorts of things. Yeah. Raindrops. Yeah.
Stop it.
Okay, next slide. All right, so what can you do? Right, so what are some of the steps? What are some of the measures? What are some of the things that you can try to do when because everybody, that's the whole thing. Let's back up to the beginning with this. Everybody has to have a handle on this. Everybody has to get an idea of this. And I say has because the only way you're ever going to solve anything that you're trying to accomplish is you got to know what you're spending. And there are multiple ways to do that out there. There's apps and tools and all sorts of things. And, Craig subscribes to going old school and just writing everything down type of thing. But you got to know what you're spending. And that statistic of that 60% of the population doesn't know what they spent last month, I'm sorry, I don't know how you're saving going forward if you don't know what you spent.
Right. And I write all my stuff in cursive so my kids won't understand what I wrote.
Well, that's different. The chicken scratch or whatever.
Even if I printed, they still wouldn't understand what I wrote, but that's okay.
But so there are some steps that you can take to sort of help you sort of gain through this, walk through it, try to figure it out, understand what it is you're trying to do, because everybody does have to have some concept and idea of what is coming in and what is going out. Yeah,
because eventually, not to keep using the same metaphor, but if you don't face it, you crash, right? Something's going to happen where you're going to get to an end of the road and there's going to be an impasse, right? You're either going to have too much debt and not be able to get over it, or maybe the vice versa, you're spending too much and you don't enjoy any of it.
Right, and then you wind up in a situation. So there is that need for balance in trying to find this. So let's go to the first one. All right. So one of the things that we talk to everybody about, most people are very good at paying bills, right? They're very good at paying their bill when that comes up.
That's right.
So if you can really visualize the idea that you are now one of those bills that is due every month, like the rent, like the utilities, like whatever it is, and now I'm going to pay those must-pay expenses. I'm going to pay those bills, and then I'm going to put myself in that column and say, no, you know what? I got to put some money away, whether it's for emergency reserve, whether it's to pay down debt, whatever it is. I'm going to set that up, and I'm going to pay myself as part of this.
Yeah, and I always think you should pay yourself first before you pay any of those other bills.
Okay.
Whatever that is that you can afford. If it's $100 a month, put away $100 a month, and then you pay your bills.
Okay.
Right? Because if you don't, what happens is you pay all your bills and go, well, there's not enough left
Right.
for you to feel comfortable, and then you don't. Right? So if you pay yourself first, then you don't forget to pay you.
Right. What happens for most of us, though, is what we end up doing is we end up paying those must-pay bills, and then we go to Taylor Swift, like Craig said. We end up doing the discretionary, the fun stuff. We end up doing the stuff, and saving sort of gets pushed off.
I'll save next month.
Yeah, it gets pushed off for later. I'll take care of that after. You know, I got to do this thing. I want to go do this thing. Or, you know, God bless, I saw somebody travel somewhere on social media. I need to go there type of thing.
If she doesn't come back around again to Boston, what am I going to do? I missed it.
Gotta go. I gotta go there.
You can't miss it.
So as part of that is just understanding, you know, how you deal with things, but you want to make sure that you put yourself in the equation, because that's going to help you really get a handle on everything versus worrying about what I'm writing down and what I'm spending and how that's going in terms of dealing with everything. Next one. You know, we really are big believers in making sure that stuff gets set up on auto pay.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, I understand there's old school folks out there in the world that want to write checks and send stuff in the mail and do that type of thing, but that can get you into problems and stuff can happen, and who knows where it goes.
I pay my bills with furs.
Furs, yes. So, you know, there's other ways
The
to
trading
do it
post.
in terms of, you know, in terms of that barter. There you go. You know, you can give them a couple of chickens and hope that the electric bill stays on, type of thing. But from there, what you're really trying to do is just it takes some of the equation out. If I've got everything set up automatically. And here's the thing with that, and here's the key. Your part in that, you as the bill, that needs to be auto as well. There's got to be portions going in. If the money's going into the bank and then the bank is auto paying all this stuff, then there's got to be another account that the bank is then sending money to that's set up for your savings portion.
I did get paid in cucumbers and summer squash this summer, though, by one client.
Okay, so
I'm just waiting for the chickens. Not kidding. I did. They gave me summer squash and cucumbers. It was great.
That's okay. You know,
I have to report that on my taxes, though.
Yeah, yes. I don't know how you figure that one out. But anyway, the idea there is trying to make sure that you've got everything set up, specifically you, when it comes to your plan for what you're trying to save. Because that's going to take the money, like Craig said, that's going to take the money away so that we're not tempted. And temptation is an evil that happens when it comes to money and finances because, hey, look, I got this money, I can go spend it.
Well, the next temptation that happens too, and this happens a lot. I always try to get ahead of this with my clients, right? What did I get this year? I got a raise.
Right.
Right? And what happens when I get a raise? Do I put that money away? No, I buy the third Swifty ticket, right?
I got another. I got to spend something
I can go out again.
Something else I can spend this on.
I got some breathing room until you now get used to spending that and you're right back in the same situation again, right?
Right. Next one. Right, so, you know, checking in with your spending, this is more of just making sure that you have a handle on where you're spending, right? So the concept and the idea here isn't so much, like one thing that Craig and I will tell everybody is we're never going to tell you where to spend your money. All we ever want you to be is aware of where you're spending your money, because that is ultimately going to give you, like Craig said, that idea, like maybe it's beers, maybe it's lattes, maybe it's something else that you're spending money on that you didn't realize how much.
Well, sometimes this can even be the basic things we talk about, the necessities, right? Utilities. Sometimes they don't realize I left the air conditioner on all day and I wasn't even home.
Right.
And my electricity bill is going through the roof. Or maybe I haven't even looked at my auto insurance rates in 5 years. I just keep renewing them and not even looking. Right. Or I have subscriptions I'm using that I don't even watch anymore, and I'm just paying for them. So just money going off into space.
Yeah.
Right. Giving it to somebody for you're not even getting any use out of it. So that's what you mean by getting a handle on your spending, is not only know what you want to be spending it on, but make sure is that staying within the budget that you outlined, right? The guidance spending allowances that you had.
Spending plan.
Right. And am I still utilizing those things? Am I getting the most out of what I'm spending it on?
Right, and I think that's important in a way, and that's sort of that same concept there, like Craig said, that whole idea of, is this really what I wanted to be spending my money on? Mm-hmm. And am I really improving myself in whatever way, shape, or form by the spending that I did? Right? Am I getting something out of that other than that instant, like I said, endorphin push that comes from, hey, it's wound up on my doorstep. Yay, I'm happy, for that moment in time.
That's right. I need that 75th knick-knack.
Yes, that little thing. I've got to have it. I've got to have another thing in terms of dealing with it. So that's what checking in with your spending is, just being aware of how you're spending, where you're spending, and maybe trying to get a little handle on where that money's going and how often it's going out the door.
Right. The other thing I think too people underestimate is taking a little bit of pride in when you actually do something like that for yourself. When you actually do take a look at your spending and go, oh, I can get this one element under control. Doesn't have to be the whole thing. Don't have to get all of it all at once. But say, look, I think I'm spending too much on groceries, right? Because I'm throwing some out at the end of the week because they went bad, right? Because you go to the store and everything looks good and you buy everything, you fill up the cart, but you can't eat all of that in 1 week, and so some of it goes bad and you lose some of the food waste. Or maybe it is going through the subscriptions and saying, well, I love watching these series, but I haven't watched this one in 6 months. Why am I still paying for it?
Correct.
Right? So take those little wins. Take the wins, and don't think you got to solve it all in one day.
Right. So next one. So, we talk about this all the time about finding your why. When we talk about finding your why with financial, with money, is really about understanding that what it means to you and why you might be doing something or why you might be spending. Mm-hmm. Or what's the trigger that caused you to have that conversation with yourself to say, hey, it was okay to buy that thing today versus not. So you do want to take a step back and understand that, or more importantly, why you want to be saving.
Yeah, a big one I see a lot these days is, the parents who are allowing the kids 20 plus living at home. And they're still supporting them, and they're still paying for their basic necessities like their auto insurance and their phone, for crying out loud. They're 28 years old and you're still paying for their phone. But the why would be because it makes me feel good to take care of my children.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to step up, but if that's causing you financial stress in doing that, you got to say, well, why am I creating financial stress for myself?
Yeah. Right, and so it's some of those things that do cause us to have a little bit of that. Next one. So, the key takeaways here is to understand that it's not a budget, so don't get into that. It's cash flow. It's understanding where your money is, why it is, and how you're spending that money. That's what it's all about. Don't get caught up with the budget. Don't caught up with somebody telling you have to do this or, you got to do that in terms of dealing with your money, because that's what's going to feel very restrictive to you, and that's what's going to cause all sorts of problems. So take the step back and say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to handle it my way. I'm going to figure out what I spend, and then I'm going to follow a path that's going to be better for me.
Yeah, and the other thing is never compare yourself to what anybody else is doing.
Right.
Because everybody's at a different point in their life, and you shouldn't be trying to say, I should be doing what my brother or sister or cousin or brother or uncle are doing, right?
So next one, and so if you can just keep this on the wide shot for us, because that QR code on the screen, that's going to connect to us. You can schedule a time. We're here to try to answer questions, to help anybody out. That's what we do here at ARIES. So just know that you can always reach out to us. The next slide, if you would, for us. That's just how to get in touch with us. That's our email. Next slide, please. The info@ariesfoundation.org. Again, you can go to the site. It's ariesfoundation.org. We're on every social media channel, so like us, follow us, check out our YouTube channel. Besides here on New TV, you can see all the shows that we do. And on that note, we want to say, Skol.